He thought his badge made him untouchable. But what happens when authority collides with someone who understands power in its truest form? The streets of Dayton, Ohio were quiet that night, slick with rain under orange streetlights. It was just past midnight, the kind of hour when most people were already tucked away at home. But for Lieutenant Colonel Mariah Jordan, the night had only just ended. She was driving her government-issued sedan back from a late strategy meeting 2 hours away. Window cracked slightly, the cool air keeping her alert, the hum of the tires steady against the wet asphalt. She wasn't speeding. She wasn't weaving. She was simply heading home, steady, calm, measured, the way she carried herself in everything she did. But to Officer Caleb Rawlings, sitting in his cruiser just off exit 27, none of that mattered. Bored, restless, frustrated with another long shift of nothing but noise, complaints and paperwork, he was looking for action. Something to remind him that the badge on his chest meant control. So when he spotted her car, his pulse picked up. Unfamiliar plates. Tinted windows. Nothing dangerous, nothing suspicious, but in his mind, just enough. Before we go any further, if this is your first time watching one of our videos, we'd love for you to hit that subscribe button. Your support means the world to us, and it helps us bring you even more powerful stories. Stick with us till the very end, and if the story moves you, drop your thoughts in the comments and share it with a friend. Now let's begin. The red and blue lights snapped to life. Mariah noticed them instantly. She slowed, signaled, pulled to the side, her movements careful, deliberate. She kept her hands visible on the wheel, just as she'd taught countless soldiers under her command. Calm under pressure. Always. Officer Rawlings approached quickly. Heavy boots on wet pavement. Hand resting on his holster. Flashlight beam slicing through the dark. He leaned in. No greeting. License and registration, he said, flat, clipped. Mariah rolled the window down halfway. Officer, may I ask the reason for the stop? Rawlings squinted. You were drifting. Didn't signal. You look impaired. Mariah tilted her head slightly. I wasn't. License and registration, louder this time. She moved slowly, retrieving her documents from the glove compartment. She handed them over, adding, this is a government vehicle. I'm a federal officer. Rawlings barely glanced at the ID. Military, huh, he smirked. Doesn't mean you're above the law. I never said I was, she replied evenly. He didn't like that. His voice sharpened. Step out of the vehicle for me. Mariah kept her tone calm. On what grounds? I've complied with every request. He leaned closer. You're refusing a lawful order, ma'am. No, I'm asking for clarification. Rawlings' jaw tightened. He yanked the door open. Step out. Now. Mariah exhaled once, quietly. She turned her phone camera on and said, just so we're clear, this interaction is being documented. The flicker in his eyes told her the recording mattered. But his ego was louder still. He ordered her through a field sobriety test under the dripping streetlights. She walked the line flawlessly. Posture unshaken. Voice level. No stumble. No hesitation. Still, he scribbled out a citation for failure to maintain lane. She accepted it in silence, returned to her car, and drove off, leaving him in the rain, convinced it was over. But it wasn't. Because Mariah Jordan wasn't just another driver. She was a decorated combat veteran with 2 decades of service. A logistics commander who had carried the weight of thousands of lives on foreign soil. She knew procedure. She knew rights. And more than anything, she knew when to stand firm. She filed her complaint within hours, attaching the footage to her report, sending it not just to the department's internal review but to the Inspector General's office as well. And that was only the beginning. Rawlings returned to the precinct amused. He tossed his report into the system, barely mentioning the stop. In the break room, he bragged to his colleagues. Tried to make it sound like a victory. Some woman flashing her credentials, trying to outrank me, he laughed. Until Officer Perez looked up sharply. Wait, what was her name? Jordan. Mariah Jordan. Rawlings shrugged. Yeah, some fed with an attitude. Perez froze. You mean Lieutenant Colonel Mariah Jordan? She spoke at the academy last year. Runs operations out of Fort Hamilton. Bronze Star. She's the real deal. Rawlings waved it off. Doesn't matter. On the street, I'm in charge. But the seed had been planted. By morning, the footage had already circulated through legal channels. Mariah didn't rage. She didn't rant. She simply documented everything step by step, truth layered with discipline. When the summons reached Rawlings 3 weeks later, he laughed out loud. Civil rights violation. No chance. But the unease in his gut said otherwise. The courtroom was stark. Polished wood. Echoing footsteps. Mariah entered in full dress uniform, ribbons glinting, every medal and stripe earned the hard way. Her presence alone commanded silence. Rawlings sat at the defense table in a dark suit, his smirk flickering when he saw her posture. Saw the way the jury leaned forward before a word was even spoken. The judge welcomed her. Lieutenant Colonel Jordan, thank you for your service. You may proceed. Her attorney stepped forward, asking her to recount the night. Calmly. Clearly. She spoke of the stop. The demands. The escalation. The unnecessary field test. Every word steady. Her phone footage rolled across the screen, capturing Rawlings' tone. His hand hovering by his weapon. His dismissive sneer when she passed the test. The jury shifted. Uncomfortable. Silent. But intent. When questioned, she didn't falter. Did you resist? No. Did you raise your voice? No. Did you identify yourself? Yes. I informed him I was a federal officer driving a government vehicle. Then why record? Because silence isn't protection. It's a risk. I wanted an accurate account. Rawlings tried to defend himself. Protocol, he claimed. Suspicion, he argued. But when asked directly whether he would have handled it differently had he known her rank, he muttered, yes. And that was all it took. The courtroom knew it. He hadn't seen a person that night. He'd seen an obstacle. One he thought powerless, until the uniform and the truth stripped him bare. The verdict came swiftly. The jury ruled in her favor. Violation of constitutional rights. Damages awarded, $40,000. A permanent mark on his record forwarded to the Department of Justice. Mariah didn't celebrate. She only nodded once. She hadn't come for money. She had come for accountability. And that was exactly what she left with. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed Rawlings. He kept his head down, muttering about appeals. But his career was already unraveling. Inside, Mariah stood in the hallway reading the words, "Verdict in your favor. Case closed." Her lawyer whispered, "You could have asked for more." Mariah shook her head. It was never about more. It was about right. If you believe stories like this should be told, hit that subscribe button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and drop a comment below, because your voice matters too. Weeks later, Mariah stood before a room of new recruits at Fort Hamilton. Their uniforms still crisp. Their eyes wide with the eagerness of youth. She asked, "How many of you think authority guarantees respect?" A few hesitant hands rose. She nodded. "I understand. But here's the truth, respect isn't given because of a badge or a rank. It's earned. Every day. Every choice. The badge, the rank, the title, they aren't shields. They're weights. And if you can't carry them with discipline, you don't deserve to carry them at all." She let the silence hang, then continued. "When I was stopped by an officer who forgot that truth, I didn't yell. I didn't crumble. I didn't let it slide. I documented it. I spoke up. I stood firm. And I told the truth." The recruits sat motionless, listening. Not because they were ordered to, but because something had landed. Mariah closed her folder. Authority without accountability is weakness. Integrity is the only real shield. Lead with that, or don't lead at all. She stepped down, not for applause, not for recognition, but because her work was already speaking for itself. The fight for accountability is never about one night or one verdict. It's about reminding the world that courage is quiet, discipline is power, and truth, no matter how long it takes, will always stand taller than fear.